Welcome to RevMD, the podcast all about medical billing. I'm your host, Dr. Heather Signorelli. Join us as we break down the ins and outs of medical billing, discuss the latest trends, and also share insights to help you and your practice navigate the world of healthcare finances. Welcome back to another week of the Not RevMD podcast. I am so excited to have Amy Burke with us today, and we're going to talk a little bit about process, right? As you guys know from our medical billing company, we're very big on process within our own billing company, but also our practices. And there is many different ways you can skin a cat when it comes to building processes within your business. I have been really fond of the EOS system out there. I've dabbled in it a little bit, but today we have an expert not only on the marketing side, but also on the process side. And she helps practices and other businesses really think through, is marketing your jam and something that you need, or is it really process, or is there one that starts and then follows the next? So I am very excited to introduce Amy Burke with us. So Amy, welcome to the show.
Yes. Hi, Heather. Thanks for having me on today. Excited to dive into this a little bit more with you.
Yeah. And so first thing, just share a little bit about you. What's your background? Who are you? Where are you from? All the good things.
Yeah, I'd love to. Sure. So as you said, my name is Amy Burke, and I reside in Kansas City, which is now famous. Thank you to Kelsey Travis and Taylor Swift. I think everybody knows Kansas City Chiefs and that story. And I have been working in sales and marketing my entire career. So 2 decades now, I've been helping doctors and companies that work with doctors. So I've either been employed with doctors or presenting something for doctors, like I said, for 20 years. And really what I'm doing now and have been doing for almost 5 years is on the consulting side is helping practices with growth. And what does that mean? Does that mean more patients? Does it mean how do we get more revenue from the patients we already have? And what does that look like when it comes to processes? Now, when I talk about processes, I'm going to be a little bit more heavy on sales and marketing processes. But what I find is exactly what you just mentioned, Heather, is some of these things that we do with marketing or we're told to do by the gurus out there online only make sense if your fundamental processes and operating systems are in check. Otherwise, you're going to be floundering or perhaps spending money that's not well spent right now on, for example, Google Ads or something like that. So that's kind of what I'm all about and trying to help those that just need some guidance on that. And sometimes it doesn't mean we're doing anything for them. It's really just educating. And I love the EOS system. I think every business owner, small, medium, or large, could really benefit from any aspect, even just pulling 1 or 2 things out of the EOS system.
Well, and I love what you were saying before we jumped on about how somebody may reach out for marketing and sales like, hey, grow. But if you don't have fundamental processes in your practice set up straight and set up well, then you can grow until the cows come home, but it's going to break and then, potentially lose patients or have a negative outcome from there. And so if you can do processes and then be able to scale because you're solid in the ground of your business, I guess, the base of your business is solid, then you can grow and grow and grow, which is, what a lot of our listeners are hoping to do with their practice, or really maybe they're just looking to improve day-to-day operations, which is something that the EOS system can really help with. So for some of our listeners, they may not know what EOS is. So talk to me a little bit about what EOS is and how it can really improve a business.
EOS is for any entrepreneur, right? So all of us that have our own business, we would consider ourselves entrepreneurial spirit or entrepreneurs in some form or fashion, I would hope. And then really what they hone in is helping those business owners with their operating system. So hence EOS. And that's what they're all about. Now they break that down into 3 areas. The 3 main areas you're looking at would be sales and marketing, which is my wheelhouse. Operations in general, what does that look like? And operations can be a long list of things. And then the third part is finance, right? So you need those 3 components to make a business work. Now, they break that down into 6 additional components. Once we look at that, you can kind of maybe we just look at sales and marketing. And in sales and marketing, we want to look at what is the vision of sales and marketing, right? Oftentimes, sales and marketing is going to be like, well, we want to grow by number of patients. We want to grow by number of revenue. What does that look like? So we have to set the vision in place. Then you need to look at the data. What data do we already have? What's our baseline? Secondly, what's a process? What process do we have in place? Or maybe what processes do we need to improve to get to that revenue number or to get to that patient number? Traction. Traction is really what it's all about, right? If you're not gaining traction, we can't grow or we can't get to that number that we're looking for. The fifth thing would be issues. They break that down into issues. What issues do we have? Good, bad, and ugly. Let's break that down, the big elephant in the room, and address that as a team. And then lastly is people. We have to have the right, as they say in EOS, I think the word is butts in the right seats.
Yeah.
Is what I hear often, right? Yeah. And so we have to make sure, and that goes kind of to HR, like on your onboarding and hiring system and a practice. Even if you're a small practice of just 3 or 4 people, you still need a front desk person, right? That's coordinating, scheduling. And you want to make sure that you share your vision and all of these things that I just mentioned with that person to make sure they're the right fit for the company, because they want to make sure it matches your vision so that you can get to that pie in the sky that you're looking for. And what I like about the EOS, as I mentioned just a minute ago, is it does break it down to those 3 core areas. So those 6 components you can break down: sales and marketing, operations, and finance.
I love it.
And again, all about systems, right?
And oftentimes when we come into a practice, and sometimes the billing may be off kilter, right? AR's off the charts. We've got maybe potentially some open chart issues, like things are just not working great. And what we often find is either they don't have the right butts in a seat, right? They don't have the right person getting back to the billing company. They don't have an understanding of what the practice needs to be doing versus what the billing company needs to be doing. And so it is this give and take in terms of us being able to get into a company and say, gosh, we have some opportunities. Now, we as a company don't specialize in fixing all of those opportunities. We try and help where we can and educate the front desk. But we do kind of stay in our lane from a billing perspective. But I do think for the listeners and for our clients, being able to have some understanding of what tools are out there to help you from an operations standpoint, to help streamline processes in the office, is only going to help either your other partners, your patients, your other employees. It just kind of goes into your entire business line when you have processes down, and then allows you to build up with, whether it's growth and marketing and sales, or hire the additional doctor or the additional provider who's going to help, grow in terms of patient base. So this is, to me, I think I love the EOS. I've read the book Traction. We've implemented a few of those things. We're looking to kind of continue to improve how we add EOS tools into our company. So your services and everything piqued my interest. So talk to me a little bit about what you've seen in healthcare practices. Like if you were to say, gosh, these are the top 3 things that you either see practices need to implement when it comes to an EOS strategy, or 3 things that are very helpful in stabilizing a practice. What do you think those are?
Yes, great question, Heather. And let me touch on just a minute what you just said, because really the key of what you just said, I try to stay in my lane too. But what happens is we start peeling back the layer of the onion going, why is our marketing not working? Oh, because the phone's not being answered, or the person at the front desk isn't asking the right questions, right? So what I have found EOS and offering that to some of my clients is really communication. You can have a process for communication. And what I have found in the practices, the number one thing that I would recommend all practice start implementing is what the EOS calls level 10 meetings. Now, that's just a fancy word and something and how they term it, but really it's just having regular meetings, right? Is that a meeting with you and your accountant to talk about finances? Is it a meeting with you and your entire staff? Because if you don't share everything with the staff, a lot of assuming starts to go on, and then things can get displaced and missed, and that can snowball on a practice. So I love the level 10 meetings. I teach this with some of my clients. And is this sales and marketing? No, but to me, this is internal marketing. This is internal marketing because there's no better people to promote your practice than your staff and your happy patients. And how do we make patients happy? Is having happy staff and great customer service. So that's the first thing. The second thing that I find really beneficial is what they allude to is their accountability chart. Now, that might seem really overwhelming and something big corporations do, but I'll tell you, Heather, I have found in even the small practice of just 5 people, 2 doctors, a nurse, and front desk, I think there was one other person, I'm forgetting right now, we implemented just a small accountability chart. And really, what does that mean? It's just holding people accountable. So something as simple as were the phones turned over to the answering service at 5 o'clock? Who is accountable for that? And was that done? So if things start to slip, we can go back to, okay, who is in charge? If you can't do it, and another thing that they have is, I don't know if you've got into this, Heather, but if you go deep into EOS, does the person have the capacity to do this, right? Do they get it? Do they want it? And do they have the capacity? The accountability chart really helps with that. And then what I think is even probably the best, to save the best for last, number 3, which really leads from the accountability chart, is a scorecard. Now, what does a scorecard mean? You can call it lots of different things. KPIs, that's generally what we call it in marketing, your key performance indicators. But you can set up scorecards for the business, right? So how are our finances tracking? You can set up a scorecard for individual staff to make sure that they're kind of just the check mark. And really, EOS can help tremendously with these things. And you can make them very simplified, or you can make them a little more extravagant. And what I love about it is you make the scorecard work for you. What is it that you're trying to measure? Because I think we probably would have both agree, and I hope all the listeners would agree today, is what you don't measure does not get managed. I'm sure that resonates with you for what you do. Oh. And that is exactly what EOS can do. And those scorecards are a key component of that.
Yeah. I mean, we measure a lot. I'm a pathologist by background. And so I love data. It's like my wheelhouse. And and we're in a billing company, right? So data drives results.
Of course. Yes.
And so we measure a monthly dashboard that we create for each of our practices that we actually share with them. But then we also internally measure that at a mid-month point. And then our managers are pulling data every week to manage to that KPI dashboard that looks at all of our practices mid-month and end of month. So, and that has evolved over time. And I would say for our listeners, if you're like, oh my gosh, I measure nothing, I'm overwhelmed, pick 1 or 2, 3 things, like start very small and build over time, right? Mm-hmm. So if you measure nothing today, maybe start with 1, like what's the most important thing? Maybe it's gross revenue. And that's a good way to start. And then you build, okay, next month I'm going to add expenses. And then I'm tracking the financials picture. And then you build upon that where you're looking at patient metrics or patient satisfaction or unanswered phone calls if we really want to drill down on a process. I mean, so for folks listening, when you're trying to solve a problem, you do have to measure it to manage it, but don't get overwhelmed thinking you need to measure everything if you measure nothing today. So
that is right. Yes, because then you can get overwhelmed and you end up measuring nothing. And it's just a piece of paper or a spreadsheet that nobody looks at.
Correct. Yeah, because that I have seen that where they're like, oh yeah, we get those reports, we get those metrics, but I don't look at them. I don't do anything with them. We don't talk about them, which to me is like, okay, well, let's take a step back. Let's find one that you can meet on, one that you can discuss and go from there. So
one thing that I found, Heather, that helps with that, which rolls right back into the accountability chart, which is why I named them in the order that I did, is find the person that can be accountable. So I will give an example of a practice I'm working with right now. They have about 20 staff, 3 providers. The rest will all be clinical and front desk and back office. And we have given every person in the business at least 1 KPI that they report out every Monday morning when we have a meeting. And then in their small little morning huddles, they talk about it. Some will go deep into that, right? Because it's very specific to their business. But just doing something as simple as that. And if you want to look at the 3 categories again and pick 1 for each category, pick 1 for sales and marketing, pick 1 for operations, and pick 1 for finance. Just start there. And like you said, build on it.
That's great. I love that. Okay. So talk to me a little bit about like issues and how EOS manages rocks, or I think that's what they call them, issues or rocks. Like talk to me a little bit about like, gosh, a practice has an issue. How do they implement something like that?
That question alone, I could probably talk to you about for 30 minutes. So let me try to bring it on a real high level. Okay. Yeah. So what I teach are having the level 10 meetings. And so level 10 meetings, when I worked in a practice, we had meetings, they were not consistent. Sometimes it was the provider meeting with 1 person in there that was not provider. So what the rocks and what the meetings for EOS, number 1 is be consistent. So is that weekly meetings, monthly meetings, and make sure all people are involved. Do you need to have a staff meeting? Do you need to have a management meeting? And I will say the thing that I love best about EOS that I even use in my personal life is I follow the IDS. So you want to identify the issue, the problem, the topic. Second, discuss it. and then solve it.
Yes.
And what we tried to do, and I just implemented this recently in a different practice, this pediatric practice that was privately owned, having a lot of dysfunction with communication. So we started implementing that. We put together a spreadsheet and a worksheet, explain that to them. So the idea is if we address and come up with an issue, whether it's individually or in your department, we bring it together and discuss it at our all staff meeting, and everybody can hear it. Because the great thing about that is somebody may bring something to the table that we didn't think about. It's always like the whole thing, two heads are better than one. That's the whole process that EOS also talks about with the meetings. It's like, let's come together, because sometimes we can't get in our little box or in our little room and those four walls, and we can't see past the four walls, where somebody maybe sitting at the front desk is like, oh, have you thought about this? They may have something to do with billing, could have something to do with billing, but just that one person is like, oh, what? Or I get this question a lot at check-in about billing and insurance. Like, let's talk about it.
So about that. Yeah,
that's right. That's right. So I really loved that I did not hear of that before. The IDS, I did not know of that before EOS. Sorry for all the acronyms, but that has been very helpful. Even when I get stuck on something, I'm like, sit down, write it out. Like, what's my issue? Who can I discuss it with? Is it with a client? Is it internal? And then let's bring a solution, right? I always say that when I start getting into a practice. Sometimes I go on site. I'm like, if you have an issue, you better come with some type of solution as well. Let's not just talk about all of our problems, but how can we really solve it?
Yeah, I like this game called Yes and. And so it is a game that you play to solve a problem. So sometimes there's not a clear answer to how do we solve this. So you get your team that you're discussing with, and sometimes ideas will get thrown out or solutions will get thrown out. And so, but they're so quick to say, well, that won't work because that won't work or this won't work. And so instead of having that negative connotation with solutions, the only words others can say are yes and. And so instead of saying, no, that won't work, you just throw out, okay, the problem is our patients are unhappy because we have high wait times, right? So then people come in with ideas of how to solve for that. But instead of shooting them down immediately, yes, and tell me more. Yes, and tell me more. And so you yes and the game for a period of time, right? You set a time frame and you go around and you get some answers and some ideas and you jot them all down. And then you can come back with like the reality lens and going, okay, so now let's pick three of those that we can whittle down. But it's been a good thing that we've done with our team to say, okay, let's negative energy stay out. Let's just throw some ideas on the table and go there. But the yes and game I find really fun with the team. So.
That's perfect. Well, and then once you take that, then I think you could build your rocks and build all the things that they use. Yeah. Instead of just putting stuff down, because to me, that's like marketing. Let's throw spaghetti on the wall and see what sticks. Like, no, let's have some real tangible things we can work with, because then we can actually make a solution and move forward with something. Yep. So
you take that list and then you really work through, okay, what's reality here? Like, what are the things that we can really think are going to work? Or what is one thing we're going to try? And then, like you said, we're measuring, and then we're looking to see at the end if something we've tried as a solution is impacting our metric, which comes full circle.
Yep. That's right. Got to have the scorecard so we can see.
Yep, exactly. Yep. So if people want to find you, how do they find you?
Yeah, sure. My website is abmarketingco.com. So Abundant Marketing is my business name. We're on socials. That's our website. I don't know. I do workshops once in a while. So I'd love to invite your audience sometime too. We're doing one on Google My Business up and coming. So that's great. I always started. I love teaching practices like practical, low cost marketing tactics that they could even implement themselves. So they don't have to go hire a big marketing team that costs $3,000-$5,000 a month. So I'm very passionate about giving back to the community. So look me up, and I'd love for any of your audience to join some of our workshops.
Yeah. We'll definitely have you send them over, and we can post them in the show notes and make sure that those get to you, or maybe even come up with creating one for our audience specifically. Maybe we can have everybody join. And so
maybe we could do one on EOS, like teach them how to set the rocks.
I like it. I
Or
like
a
it.
scorecard. Yeah.
I love it.
You and I both love data. I mean, marketing person, we love data too. So maybe we could do scorecards.
I love it all. This is perfect. Well, I am so grateful to have you on today. And hopefully, listeners, you guys had a little taste of EOS. Again, that IDS network or that IDS acronym is Identify, Discuss, and Solve. So we're going to get that down. And as always, I'll post the links at the bottom and so that you can reach out to Amy and check out her website. And hopefully we'll schedule an upcoming webinar or some sort of teach and learn thing for our guests. So thank you again for our listeners, and we'll talk to you next week. Thanks so much.